When it comes to like being respectful of a person's privacy, I think educating yourself, if you just educate yourself even on the basics of the queer community, the rest is just basic etiquette. Like, don't shame a person for their sexual choices, or for any for, or for I think a lot of times we make comments like, that person is like sort of being very gay, or why are they always like rubbing it in their face, and it's some things are very basic. Don't judge a person, don't shame a person, don't ask overly personal questions to a stranger. Like, would you be asking like a heterosexual person to kind of explain what kind of genitals that they have, or what the or to explain, explain in detail, so who exactly are you attracted to? Or will you ask someone at a party ki, like, oh, so how exactly do you have sex? So there's some of these questions. Like, I think if you just keep in mind at a very basic level ki, will you be asking a heterosexual person this? Will you be asking everyone else? Like, would you be so it's only it's not like you can't ask questions, but you have to establish at least an intimacy with someone before you want to talk about these things, right? Think of about how, when it comes to questions of personal life or sex or sexuality, like, how did you speak to your friends about it? How much time did you need to know someone before you could ask questions like that? So I think that's just like one very basic way of sort of like knowing of understanding. And of course, there are every there are like stereotypes associated with almost every alphabet in the LGBTQ, the entire spectrum. And um and I think there are always certain common questions that you might have in mind. If you really just go and Google it, you will find that there are lots of resources that will tell you. If someone tells you that they are pansexual and go and try to get it, no need to quiz them about it right there. You can just go home and look it up. And I think a lot of places, like even AOI, we do put out articles that answer some common kind of questions. Like, pansexuality ke saath, some people might say ki, oh, does that mean that you will cheat on people because you like people all the time? No, it just means that you know our options are open. Like, we like people irrespective of their gender. So we don't have any specific preference of like a pansexual is can be attracted to a person who's non-binary, a person who's a woman, a man, anyone. That doesn't matter. So, and that doesn't mean ki you're attracted to everyone all the time. Like, it means ki your possibilities are unlimited. And baki sab, whether you are a promiscuous person by nature, like if you love flirting with everyone, or whether you don't open relationship, or whether you're like supremely monogamous, all of those other choices are choices that even heterosexual people make. So, your sexuality does not reflect your sexual behavior. Like, your sexual behavior can be anything, just like how it can be for a heterosexual person. And with any of these identities, there are people who have put out resources about what are the kind of questions to not really ask people, or what are the common questions that you might have. And I can actually share a few that we have. I think one more thing to keep in mind as an ally is also people in the queer, just like how there are different kind of people. Like, there will be some people in the queer community who are very activistic. There will be some people who are more quiet, or who want a more private kind of a life. There are people who might be like very activistic about something else. Maybe the person is like an environmental activist, and but they keep their private life very private. So there are different kinds of people in the community. Of course, we also lock horns with people even within the community. It's like a community, like every other community. And I think when we stereotype communities, when we stereotype queerness, it's like we don't keep our minds open. Like, we can't assume that all queer people are going to be the same, or all people of a certain identity are going to be the same, or have the same priorities even. And I think with this thing about being like a quiet girl, I think one thing that I wanted to, so which I think is important for allies to understand, the importance of expressing your queerness. I think even like Subramanian Swami recently said something about ki, oh, I don't mind if someone's gay as long as they don't flaunt it, then it's wrong, or something like that. So, and I think we get, and I think people who are queer do get different versions of that line thrown at them all the time. It's even in the most well-meaning ways. People might think that they are trying to protect you, or keep you like you might have a well-meaning friend say ki, like, oh, don't wear such a gender non-conforming or such a loud outfit, what if you get hurt. But the thing is, as an ally, you have to it's like you have to recognize that there is a difficulty with being queer, with expressing queerness, and that there might be a backlash, but you have to be there for that person and not make decisions on their behalf. Like this entire thing like when we and that we can't police someone's behavior, and I think like it also has something to do with the way we police sexuality in general. Like a lot of our discomfort with people being openly queer probably also stems from the fact that we're just like generally very unused to people openly like speaking about their sexuality. And so I think along with of course like the kind of stigma that is there with being queer, and I think like it is important to express concern if you have any sensitively. And the most and with expressing queerness, I've often received like comments from like very well-meaning friends, people who have been very close to for many years. Yeah, why do you still only watch gay movies, or like aren't you a little bit obsessed? But the thing is, on one hand, I would say like I feel like there are like two parts of it. For me, I think queerness is interesting as a topic. Like I was interested in queerness even before like I realized I was queer. So for like it is completely fine for if it's completely fine for a person to be obsessed with video games, or to be obsessed with cosplaying, or to be obsessed with some like tea, then that is considered fine. Why is it not okay for us to be like a little obsessed about something that really does affect us in our life? And there's also this, it's important to understand the duality of queerness both defining you and not defining all of you. Like okay, it is sure like our sexuality is just a part of us, and that's true. Like it's not all of us. Like it doesn't define everything, but it is important enough. Like it does shape our experiences in how we react, in how we interact with the world, and how the world interacts with us. So we can't. So it's sort of like that thing. Recently people have been saying like, oh, I don't see color. Like people don't want you to like people do want you to see color and to be see how it affects like how you get marginalized on the basis of that. Like it's not like I don't want you to like erase my sexuality. It is a part of me. My queerness does define a lot of things about me. Maybe it defines other people's lives, and like another queer person's life a little less. Maybe for some people a little more. Like so some people will be very loud because they want to be loud, and it is very that intensely important to them. So I think while for some people, it's not necessary for them to be that way. And I think, yeah, of course, like there's always like two sides to like, stereotypes also affect us in the sense that sometimes you might react to it by being like, oh, I'm not going to be like that at all. Or you might feel guilty if you're not like the stereotype, because you're just, oh, this just mean that I'm not gay enough, or like, am I not queer enough? So I think understanding that duality is important. It is important to us. It's not all of us, but it's important. Like don't know, like this multiplicity, like we can accept it. It doesn't have to be key, like in order to be accepted, we have to leave our queerness behind or pretend that it doesn't influence our life. I think in terms of like a person's gender identity, is it right to ask them directly? Like in your daily interactions with people, like ask yourself honestly, do you really need to know the gender of the person? I mean, like all you really need to know is their pronoun, so that you know how to refer to them. Just like how you would ask someone's name, like so you know how to refer to them. So all you need to ask is he like can you tell me what your pronouns are? And like I think some people even say don't use the term preferred pronouns, just use the term pronoun. What are your pronouns? Otherwise it makes it sound like what do you prefer to be a certain gender or something like that. Like it's not like it's that person's pronoun end of thing. And so just ask people your pronouns. Sometimes it makes other people comfortable if you also state your pronouns, like hey, hi, I'm Devismita, my pronouns are she, what are your pronouns? And like I think also in general, like I've realized if I have to point to someone who looks distinctly gender non-conforming, like just use they them pronouns to point out to the person if you don't want to accidentally misgender someone. And I think like in general also we unexpectedly expectedly like it's a usual thing to like say ki they did this, they did that. Like we shouldn't be very afraid of like these gender neutral ways of referring to people. Like if you can describe a person standing there at a distance as okay, that person has dark hair and long curly hair, and they are wearing like a turquoise top, like you can go speak to them. You don't need to say ki it's a the woman standing out there, like there are many ways of like ungendering the way in which we see the world. So yeah, just ask pronouns, like and like unless you're like a journalist or something and you want to specifically, like with AOI, if I interview someone about their sexuality, then I might ask them, okay, what's your name, age, what is your gender and sexuality, and like what do you identify as. And even then, like we've had people give us like responses like, the sexuality forever fluctuating. Don't like persistently like, nay, to tell me your exact label. If like accept people's responses for what they are. Like you don't need to know. Someone might say ki, oh, I don't identify as anything. Someone might not want someone to know what their gender identity is. So it's fine. Like, just know, like, for practical reasons, know the pronoun, ask for the pronoun. I think that's good enough.